Salutations, Utopians Global here. Wanted to talk a little bit about last night. As you all know, it was action-packed time in pro sports between the NBA playoffs and the NFL draft, which I'm about to get to. Memphis Grizzlies blowing a 29-point lead to the OKC Thunder. A lot of legendary stats from this team, accolades and accomplishments are happening with OKC. Coming back from a 29-point deficit, added to their resume already, one of the largest margin for victory teams of all time. I think they are number one in that category. And then, win total, all types of just crazy stats you can look up. This team has accomplished. Lou Dort out here low bridging Ja Morant out for the remainder of the playoffs is devastating. I just think a league without Ja Morant, LaMelo, these kind of guys really hurts the overall productivity of the league. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the Denver Nuggets. They're not going to probably get another win in this playoffs. I mean, the interim head coach doing the best he can, but Mike Malone, enjoying your time off, bro. With that being said, 32 teams just started a new day for a lot of for a lot of players who are beginning a new legacy in their family lineage. However, what I want to talk about is one guy who didn't get picked in the draft in the first round, at least not yet, and that is Shadeur Sanders. Shadeur is Colorado Buffs, coming off his Colorado Buffs campaign. A lot of people are shocked. Some people are saying it's, making all types of excuses, and I'm here to tell you what my belief system is on what's going on here. First and foremost, there were two quarterbacks drafted yesterday in the first round. One first overall in Cam Ward, unbelievable. He's got that Jameis Winston type leadership and charisma. Great guy, very simple old soul, athletic freak, physical beast. I think he definitely possesses some quality intangibles that could make a franchise leap. I'm not a huge fan of the pick. I don't think Tennessee, with a 32nd ranked offensive line last year, should be worrying about that. I would have went Will Campbell. That has nothing to do with, with Cam Ward. But, I think the icing on the cake was the fact that you had a young man in Malik Willis, who I kept saying they need to be more patient with, go to Green Bay, win 2 games as a starter. Ironically, the draft was held in Green Bay, and I just felt like they should have been more focused on securing the trenches so that guys like Will Levis, who experienced a Shadeur Sanders type slide, ironically, could do what he needed to do. I think there's still hope for Will Levis, and I think they're not giving him enough time to learn, and I think bringing in another quarterback isn't going to solve that. With that being said, that is a blessing in disguise that Shadeur was able to dodge that toxic situation, because he doesn't have the greatest athletic profile to begin with. Secondly, Jaxson going to the Giants. That's another situation where I don't know why the Giants, I know they have needs offensively, they have a pretty elite defense, but they have some extreme needs offensively. I'm not quite sure why they're trading up for a quarterback. They're not a quarterback away, and it doesn't matter, what's the point of buying furniture for an apartment if you don't have the rent for next month? So to me, I don't really understand that move by the Giants either. I'm sure Jaxson has potential. He has the most passing yards from this group last season, but so he's definitely experienced throwing the ball. Bo Nix also had that kind of statistic in his favor last year, and it worked out for Denver. But I'm not a huge fan of the Giants trading up to get him. He's no stranger of throwing the ball, though, and your job first and foremost is to get Malik Neighbors the ball, win, lose, or draw. With that being said, when you got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, which pivots into my next point, you got to realize this is a mediocre draft class in contrast to what what last year held with Drake May, Bo Nix, off top of my head, are guaranteed to be 10-year guys in this league. and that's very rare in and of itself. But there's plenty of other guys who are bubble players who I think also displayed a lot of potential. Joe Milton is it could be special, and Joe Milton segues into my point with Shadeur Sanders as well, and why the Patriots traded him. The NFL, for one, to get to my 2 points, for one, there's only so many slots in the league. And if you look at the quarterback situation, there's veterans who are still waiting for their next chance after being in a bad situation or a situation that didn't fit. Speaking of the Titans with Cam Ward or Shadeur Sanders, if you don't have the proper, variables in place, the equation will blow up. And that's what we're seeing right now. Bear with me 1 second. And that's what we're witnessing with the first batch of quarterbacks from the veteran class. Carson Wentz is out there still waiting for his next opportunity. Zach Wilson is waiting for a chance. Desmond Ridder is waiting. You have all these veteran guys. Cooper Rush went to the Ravens on a multi-year deal. Tyrod Taylor, Kenny Pickett, who showed flashes of brilliance, as that offense definitely looked different with him over Jalen Hurts last year. Mason Rudolph is looking for a next opportunity, which is, speaking of that was a big time bubble spot that could have been for Shadeur. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they elected to stick with the status quo. Khan went with Harson or something like that, but he's a defensive tackle. He reminds me of Casey Hampton, the defensive tackle they've had there in the past. They stuck to the status quo and went D-line, and to me that is ultimately the big picture. And I have a 32 draft. I have a full 32 breakdown coming. I just want to go for a walk, make sure I clear my head for that one. But this one I want to get out immediately because I'm seeing, and this is not even immediate, it's the day after. I really should have made this last night, but this is really a situation where I'm seeing people make it about a lot of different things. And the bottom line is this, first of all, there's already a short, lacking enough spots in the league for NFL quarterbacks. There's guys who are due for another opportunity, like you've seen what Sam Darnold did. Got out of Carolina, spent a year behind a real offensive guru, or at least a coach who has a reputation for being a guru, regrouped, then went to the Minnesota Vikings, ended up doing a 14-2 campaign with them. Regardless how you feel about how the season ended, he went 14-2 as a starter. That's all you need to know. And now they got McCarron from last year's draft class, who I think is going to do a phenomenal job stepping in and continuing that tradition. Not to mention, the league don't even know what to do with Kirk Cousins, and I know he still has something left in the tank, even though he's a little old and long in the tooth, and there's concerns about injuries. But there's only so many slots, and these guys come in, and they have one or two very strong quality traits, but they also lack in important areas for one reason or another. So understanding why Shadeur is not being picked, that's one. Two, speaking of Joe Milton earlier and even Cam Newton, I think with him, that's exactly the problem. You got to remember, when his pops, Coach Prime, is one, he's on TV, starting with CBS. Two, he's a Super Bowl champion and a Hall of Fame defensive back. Three, he arguably resurrected the discussion in college football and gave it a shot in the arm. Whether you want to admit that that's his contribution or not, he did something great. Well, guess what? That means you come with a big-time circus. It comes with a lot of noise. And so when you got a starter, which is why the Patriots moved off Joe Milton, because they know there's going to be growing pains. Ironically, there was moments that Joe Milton looked better than Drake May in that offense. And those wide receivers in Polk and Butte and all of them, they were getting open with him more than they were with Drake. So guess what? They had to move him for no other reason besides the fact we don't want any confusion about a quarterback controversy. Let's go ahead, and they sent him off to Dallas. Now you're watching the situation with Shadeur. Your pops is a big time icon. Furthermore, you wearing the chain, doing the watch. This is the one thing I didn't like. It kind of puts a target on your back. They did what they have to do. Family first, loyalty to the family, I get it. But teams are scared away, and they're trying to temper the expectations of having a guy with that much polarity, with that much level of popularity. They want to channel. And this is the one big knock with the NIL pipeline. Guys are being built up to be celebrities. Well, when you're a quarterback, teams like you to be mild temper, and that's what is bothering people. It's not necessarily him; it's the crowd around him. It's the Caitlin Clark effect. We like Caitlin. It's the fans and the group of demographic that you're bringing that is kind of causing us, that is being a bit startling. That's the issue. It has nothing to do with actually him, the guy. He's a humble dude. He's paid. He's come up in wealth. You know, he's got a father figure. But it also concerns franchises that everyone's seeing all this. And now the franchises, these owners, these billionaires do not like to feel like they're getting bullied into doing anything. That's why you're seeing what's going on with Dallas Mavericks and Cowboys with respect to the casino situation. The people in Congress, we feel like we're getting bullied into waiting, and they felt like the Congress was making them, not moving or talking to them the way they want to hear it, even though they're so responsible for such they're a big part of the economy, and they're like, you're not giving us what we want. Okay, boom, we'll start moving things around out here, and you see the Cowboys and the Mavericks looking like they're punting in their own kind of way, and so, that's the one thing. A billionaire don't want to be told no. They don't want to be told how to do things, and they're kind of getting that type of feedback low key. And so when you bring in a Shadeur, even if Prime's on his best behavior, even if Shadeur's on his best behavior, the ecosystem around him, the fishbowl around him, is not going to allow it for it to be a pleasant thing. So they're letting teams know. They're trying to shift the collective by making it go from, oh, he's going top 5 in that entitled shit, to like, okay, when is he going to get picked? Where is he going to go? Trying to humble the collective, because at this point it is a little bit crazy, and you can't blame him. Like I said earlier, Colorado, what he did at Jackson State, going there, it was like, oh yeah, I can see how this works. And then he leaves, and then the narrative about him betraying Jackson State and that discussion build up. Then he goes to Colorado, becomes even a bigger cash cow. Now he's taking D1 programs and bringing life back into them that were completely, that were not necessarily the most favored on a national level. Brought that rise to stardom. Brought a quarterback, which is the pro sport, NFL's pro darling. Well, guess what? It just happened to be his son. Then he has this prolific two-way player that actually reminds people of him. And guess what? And he's a social media star. But now here's the downside, which is there's always two sides to every coin, unfortunately. And that is that media attention. And it's ironic, because Cam tried to go speak to him and try to get that mentorship around him, like, hey, just tone it down a little bit, because franchises don't like loud backups. And he was like, no, you kind of moving kind of weird. And I could understand his concern. You're at the top of the food chain. You don't know what people's motives are. He might be trying to attach himself. But you see, Cam is now on First Take. He's got his podcast. He's doing his thing. Maybe he was coming from a place of love. It's kind of difficult to know what people's intentions are when they're coming around, and you get nervous. But you got to understand that maybe if there was anyone that was qualified to talk to him, it was Cam Newton, to put his arm around him and say, hey, these are some of the things to think about. And Shadeur is think about it. It's not just Shadeur the player. If a coach is struggling with Shadeur, now your job is in jeopardy. And now you got this big time powerful entity in Deion Sanders and Brand that will sit up there and say, you know what, I've been here a long time in Colorado. It's getting a bit mundane. I might want to spark it up. I'm not going to lie. I was one of those people that really thought he was leaving Colorado when his kids did. But he seems to be locked in on a multi-year deal. But give it a couple more years, and you've been there a while, and you're seeing your son struggle. As a parent, you might be inclined to be like, nah, let me go up in there and fix this real quick. And guess what? That's all but guaranteed you out of there. That's a lot that comes with this whole role of taking Shadeur. If the coach isn't performing well with Shadeur, well, let me go get him then. I mean, we just watched a man get his number retired, make his son's number retired. And there's players who've waited far more longer, who did actually have the resume, a.k.a. Salam, former Chicago Bears running back, take forever to get his jersey retired. And so we see the power that is being flexed. We see how valued he is. A coach can be career suicide for you. So I'm seeing people, oh, it's the intimidation of the dad, and it's all these various things. I don't even like speaking. I don't even want to say all the things I'm hearing. But ultimately, it just boils down to, we got to channel the expectations. Is he an NFL quarterback? Absolutely. Is he probably the most closest to NFL ready? Probably, even though he does have a problem with staring down receivers. But when you have a questionable O-line and all that, running game not the most flattering, of course it's going to be a concern. But I'm watching this unfold and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I get what's going on here. They just want to try to channel expectation. That's my belief system. I've heard other people say it's how he comes off, this and that. I just think the stage is very intimidating for a lot of people, especially coaches. They're not used to getting this type of love and admiration and attention. And now you got a guy coming in, you're seeing everything you're not. You're seeing the polarity that Coach Prime brings. That these guys are. There's not a single coach in the league, a Stefanski, who name any coach you can think of right now. Even Mike Tomlin. None of these guys have the celebrity that Coach Prime has as a coach. So the coach's son comes in, and now you seeing like, wow, I can't even get closely mentioned like this. Prime is like a LeBron. He's like he's like his own franchise. He's a walking team of his own. And so when you see this stuff, it can be very intimidating, to prospective teams and coaches. They're like, if anything, if you're not emotionally evolved enough, if you're not polished enough as a human being and secure with yourself enough as a human being, you could look at the situation out of spite even. You'd be like, damn, you realize what you'll never be. Nobody in the NFL is ever going to reach that level of celebrity that Coach Prime is. And that's just the reality. So when you imagine a offensive coordinator or a GM or someone trying to interview him, of course that's where the cockiness thing comes from, because you're just like, but ultimately, if you're secure with yourself, it doesn't bother you, because first of all, most people shouldn't even strive for that level of attention, because it's not for you're not capable of handling that. You should be grateful that it's not for you, because most people would crash out with that level of fame. You should be happy with what your situation is and be good with that. But unfortunately, some people don't look at it like that, and that's where the cockiness rumors and all that will come from, I believe. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think it's an indictment on the quality of quarterback he is. In fact, I think he's probably the most overall polished quarterback in this draft. But ultimately, I think it more boils down to all the maintenance that comes with it. Yeah, you can afford the price tag, but the price tag is within reach. But the actual maintenance, the oil change, the tires, the type of gasoline you have to put, all that extra stuff is what's scaring teams away and why they're trying to channel the expectations. I do expect him to get drafted in the second round today. Probably Cleveland might spin the block and get him, but it's going to be on a more low-key profile as a second round pick to try to get things under control. It doesn't take anything away. Everyone knows once you get drafted, no one cares where you went to. Once training camp starts, nobody cares what you did in college or where you got drafted. Jalen Hurts was a second-round pick, and now he's a Super Bowl champion head quarterback. We all know the Tom Brady story. We all know Joe Montana. So it's not a measurable thing. It just boils down to, at the end of the day, they are trying to, I believe, control the unnecessary hype that's not going to do anything in the immediate to help the development of him make this transition into the league. I'll try to do better next time. Utopians Global out.